This episode of Pots and Trowels is brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and Mr Fothergills. On this week's Pots and Trowels, we're going to be planting out sweet pea plants and starting to sow herbs in pots. Well, as we get towards the end of April, it's time to start thinking about putting sweet peas in because we're still getting cool nights, but they're fairly tough plants anyway, and they'll get established and then we'll get the lovely flowers in the summer. So these are the plants that we raised from seed that was sown earlier on in the season. Some of them I did in cell trays like this, and others were done in pots, and then they were potted on into individual pots like this. And this is an ideal plant to put in the garden. It's got a nice top on there, nice and bushy, and if I gently knock that out the pot, more importantly we can see there that it's got a lovely established root system, so when that's in the garden it's going to settle in and grow away very quickly. Now if you haven't grown sweet peas, don't worry, there is still time. You can sow them now right up until the end of May. It just means you get flowers in late summer instead of early summer, and this is some that I'm going to be sowing. This is a lovely new variety which is called Mayflower 400, and this one is a new one that's been launched to celebrate the Pilgrim Fathers going across to America 400 years ago and the sailing of the Mayflower. So they will be sown directly into the ground very, very soon to get late flowers. Now, sweet peas are climbing plants, so they need something to scramble up. So you can use canes and netting, but last week when I pruned the hazel, I kept the poles, and this is what I've made, this very simple but rustic climbing frame for them. I've made the framework with the stout poles, and then I've used all the twiggy growth around the base there just to start them off, and they'll twist and curl and go, and we can add more twigs as they grow. So this will give them plenty of support. Nothing's been wasted. All the thin tops I've used to make these very rustic labels, sweet pea labels. You can use them all around the garden, and all you do basically is to get a nice offcut like this. It doesn't have to be hazel, it can be any branch in the garden. You need a sharp knife, and then being very careful, of course, we're just going to take a sliver off like that, so that we can see that we've got an area, and they write on very easily with a pencil and they'll last all summer, so you can make your own labels very easily. So to prepare the ground, all I've done is fork it over. I've already worked some compost into it, a little bit of fertiliser, and then it's simply a case of planting them. I'm a bit squashed at the moment. This is the carrot bed with a carrot root fly cage over it, so I've got to squeeze in between it, but all I'm going to do is very carefully knock that out of the pot, and then I'm going to plant these about sort of 10 inches a foot apart. Just dig a hole into the soil, put it in there, and then gently firm the soil around it, and then we're going to do another one about 10 inches apart here, and then they will get growing and they'll twist and turn into there. Sometimes I just put them in there so that the branches will go, and it's just simply a case of working the way along the row, planting the sweet peas as we go. Hello, you come to help? You come to help? Do you want a pot? Do you want a pot? Hey, do you want a pot? I'm trying to finish planting sweet peas. Go on, off you go. Finally, don't forget to put your label in, and then give them a good drink to water them in and settle the roots. And they're going to need watering probably a couple of times a week if the weather stays dry, just to get the roots down. They don't like it if they dry out, just to get them growing, and within a few weeks they'll make lots and lots of new growth. If you like your fresh herbs in the kitchen, now's the perfect time to start sowing them. And most of them are really easy to sow. Things like curly parsley, the flat leaf parsley, coriander, dill, all grow very easily from seed that you can sow directly into the garden or into pots. The other one you can sow, of course, is basil. Now, basil is, again, easy, but it likes it a little bit warmer, so don't sow that outside at the moment. Wait a month, unless you've got a greenhouse, of course, and you can start them off, but they don't like the cold. They don't like that chill. So what we're going to do today is to sow some coriander. But first of all, what you're going to grow them in. Well, I'm going to grow them in pots, different types of pot, anything can be used. Terracotta is very traditional, it looks the part with herbs, especially if you're going to stand them by your back door. And if I'm using terracotta, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I still like to put a piece of crock in there over the hole just to stop the drainage being blocked up. Plastic is perfectly okay, doesn't dry out as quickly in the summer, so in that way it's quite good for retaining moisture. It's nice and light, and of course you can use them time and time again and recycle them. So we've got the pot there. What we need to do is to fill it with good quality compost. So I've got some compost there, level it off and just give it a light firm, not too firm, and then just make sure you've got a nice level area to sow the seeds onto. And I'm going to sow coriander. Now coriander is quite a fast growing herb. Lots of people fail with it through no fault of their own, because if it gets a check in growth, it dries out or it gets cold, then it will suddenly decide to flower and what we call go to seed. So the secret is to grow it fast, cut it, sow again. So every 2 or 3 weeks to sow a pot, and then you've got a successional supply of fresh coriander to use in the kitchen on your whatever you're cooking, your curries or your chilies, whatever you want to put it on. It's quite a big seed is coriander. So there it is, a nice big seed. And all we're going to do is space these about maybe an inch apart over the surface of the compost. You don't have to be too precise with them. And then once we've sown them over there like that, we can put the spare ones back in the packet, and they'll do for the next couple of pots. We put those in carefully. Whoops, don't spill too many. And then all we need to do is get a little bit of compost and just cover them over with about 1/2 inch of compost like that. So just fine compost and just lightly firm that down. And then we're just going to give them a drink of water like that, just to moisten the compost, and then labeling them. And then they need to be stood somewhere outside, sheltered, or on a windowsill. And I would expect that within about a week to 10 days, we're going to have lovely shoots. And in a few weeks' time, you can start cutting your own fresh coriander. Well, thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and I hope you've enjoyed it. It's great to see we're getting so many followers, and that's down to you for sharing it on Facebook and YouTube, so please keep doing that. We'll be back again soon when I'm going to be sowing flowers for cut flower and also dealing with grass cuttings in the garden.